Over the 3 years since Anno 1800 released, there has been a bunch of DLC. Being a new player and seeing this wall of potentially expensive content can be pretty daunting. I've gone to the trouble of putting every piece of DLC into a tier list from must buy all the way to must buy, so you know which ones are worth your hard-earned cash and which ones you can leave. We're going to go through in release order from Season 1 all the way up to Season 4, and then we'll cover the cosmetic packs at the end, since they are still technically DLCs, but don't really have anything that isn't, well, cosmetic. Also, since the main DLCs are separated into their seasons, I'm also going to give the season passes an overall rank. That way you can save a few bucks by grabbing them en masse if you feel like it. Okay, let's get started with Season 1 and Sunken Treasures. Honestly, starting out really strong here. By far the biggest thing Sunken Treasures adds is the new region Cape Trelawney. This is possibly the most overpowered area in the game since you are gifted this massive continental island by the Queen upon arriving in the region. This allows you to build a truly massive city that sprawls the bare part of a quarter of the map. Of course, this area also comes with a questline that sees you exploring the story of the Battle of Trelawney and retrieving precious and powerful artifacts that have been lost to the ocean floor. You do this with the brand new salvager ship that you receive from Old Nate. Not only is this used for quest items, but you can now also find treasure maps, which lead you to all kinds of items, animals and more, alongside scrap, which can then be used to craft even more powerful items. This one for me adds so much to the game and is also incredibly powerful, allowing you to basically print money with treasure maps and that big ol' island. It's also a mid-game DLC, so you're going to stumble across it pretty much every game, even if you don't make it super late into the game, or even don't make it to the engineers. This easily gets a must-buy from me for its level of content and approachability, starting out strong in Season 1. Next we have Botanica. Of course, the main aspect of this DLC is the Botanical Gardens, which is a building similar to a zoo or a museum, where you add additional modules to increase the effects. Each module can equip one of the many new plants to increase the attractiveness of the island or gain specific bonuses. Some items grant fertility to the home island or increase the productivity of certain buildings that use a fertility type. This DLC also adds the Music Pavilion, which is a special module available to zoos, museums, and botanical gardens. These can be equipped with music sheets to increase island attractiveness, among other things, and change the background music of that island. All of these new items, like the plants and sheep music, can be found from botanical expeditions and the World's Fair, so you've got lots to keep you busy far into the late game if you're a collector. Finally, the DLC adds a few ornamental items to decorate your gardens and islands just a little bit more. This DLC is going to go into the only if you really want it tier. The new items are fun for collecting in the late game and can help you if fertility is proven to be a problem, but honestly, you can play the entire game without touching the content from this DLC and you wouldn't really notice. Our final DLC of Season 1 is The Passage. The main part of this DLC is the new Arctic region that's unlocked via an expedition once you reach the engineer stage, and this is for sure a later game DLC. The expedition to unlock the region is long and requires a high tier ship with carefully chosen cargo to survive. Once you're in the region, you of course have a brand new storyline where you assist Lady Jane Faithful in finding her husband who went missing in the area. Alongside this, you can of course build up islands in this area, and the rules here are a little bit different to say the least. You have 2 tiers of residents, and they each have their own set of needs that require goods from both the Arctic and Old World regions. Alongside this, you must also manage temperatures to keep them warm and prevent them from falling ill in the sub-zero conditions. Your reward for surviving in such inhospitable conditions are 2 new buildings. The first is the gas-powered power plant, which can be built in the old world and utilise gas harvested in the Arctic. Alongside this, you can also build the airship hangar, which allows you to build flying airships which are fast and, for the time being, invincible trade vessels, which can move as the crow flies to optimise your trade routes. I would say this DLC belongs in the fun for most people tier since it has some massive and fun additions to the game alongside that interesting storyline. The only thing letting it down is how late in the game it is, so new players likely won't see it for about 30 hours until they get deep enough into the game, and even then they probably won't make full use of it until much later on. Overall for Season 1, I'm going to put it into fun for most people as well. Combine Sunken Treasures and the passive and you have 2 massive expansions that can keep most players busy for a very long time, collecting all the new items and building up those islands in those 2 exciting new regions. While Botanica may be pretty basic, it's perfectly fine when balanced out by the other 2 great content packs. Starting for Season 2, we have Seats of Power. The main thing this DLC adds is the Palace. This is a superstructure consisting of the base building and a selection of wings that can be added over time to further increase the attractiveness and buffs placed on the home island. The Palace allows you to select from a choice of buffs for different areas of your island, like labour, welfare and culture. This allows you to buff these different areas, such as increasing productivity of certain buildings or reducing the needs of your residents. The more wings you add to your palace, the further the range of these effects spread via your road network, and the higher your global population is, the more wings you can build. You can also unlock powerful effects for all areas, the more attractive the home island of the palace is. You can only have 1 palace, but the local departments can spread the effects to other islands, though without such an impressive range. This is a super late game building and DLC, since you need to be pretty much at the end game investor stage before you can even think about building it and making use of its effects. For this reason, and honestly the minimal content added here, I'm going to drop this one into the only if you want it tier. If this is something really cool to you, then go right ahead, but if not, you're not really missing out on much. Next up we have Bright Harvest, another fairly light DLC here, but the little bits added are really great and can make a huge change in your islands. The main focus of this DLC is to add multiple new building add-ons to increase your farming production. Silos allow you to use crops to increase your production of animal goods in the same space. The crops required vary depending on the type of animal product and region, but you can get started with this pretty much as soon as you have workers and pump out resources at a high pace. Tractor barns can be added onto crop farms and require fuel stations to function. When supplied with fuel, they massively improve the production of the farms and allow you to build even more field modules for even more improvements. The Grand Oil Harbour offers a final upgrade to your oil harbours, allowing you to have even more oil storage and trains all in one place. And finally, the DLC also adds some agricultural and industrial ornaments to beautify your islands. I would say to grab this one on a sale if you can. It doesn't give a ton of new content and won't really keep you busy for hours, but it does give a nice boost to your mid-game production, and you don't have to wait until the end of the game to access the content here. Next up we have Land of Lions. Season 2 finishes strong with another content pack adding a whole new region to the game. The new East Africa-inspired Mbesa region consists of multiple islands similar to the old world in layout, but with a much warmer climate. This means you have to worry about irrigation to grow crops and farm cattle, which adds another layer of complexity to your island supply chains. Residents in this region come in 2 new tiers, and of course each have their own set of needs, which require a whole host of new products made in and out of this brand new region. You also have one more tier that has been added to the old world to allow scholars from Mbesa to live and study on your islands. Of course, you also have the main storyline of this new region, all about uniting the 3 sub-factions here under the new rule of Emperor Katima, and each one of these sub-factions has their own storyline that will determine the outcome of the main story. Finally, you can also make use of the Research Institute, which is a super endgame building that allows you to research and produce items as well as other technological discoveries. I would say this DLC is fun for most players, since another region is always a lot of fun. There is a ton to keep you busy here for many hours. Yes, the entirely separate region can be a lot to manage on top of all the others at this point, but the management is well worth the enjoyment. Overall for Season 2, I think it's a little bit weaker than Season 1, so if it's on a sale then pick it up, but don't go breaking the bank unless this really looks like something you'd enjoy. There are some great bits of content here, but 2 out of the 3 content packs are a little bit light on, well, content. Coming into Season 3 now, first up we have Docklands, and surprisingly enough, this DLC adds the Docklands building to the game. This is a modular building that's unlocked in the mid-game, but takes pretty much until the end game to reach its final form. The base building allows you to maintain one export and import contract, where you trade preferably something you have a lot of for something you don't. Over time, as you trade more and more of one product, you get a better exchange rate, so get more in return, meaning more resources for you. The different modules allow you to improve your harbour area in various ways, with more storage capacity, increases loading speed, more simultaneous contracts, and even more docks for ships to trade at once. Upon reaching the maximum tier of trading on any good, you get access to the world-class reefer, which isn't just some really good weed, it's actually a powerful ship design that moves quickly in regions and moves twice as fast when moving between them, making it an excellent long-range trade vessel. Finally, you also get 25 new harbour ornaments to make your dock area look a little bit more pretty. I'm going to put this DLC into the only if you want it tier, since this is another that you can really ignore if you want, since nothing here is essential to having a good game, but they are nice additions if you're into that sort of thing, and of course that ship is a great reward once you get to the end game. Next we have the tourist season, and of course this DLC adds a whole tourist system as a new way to generate income on your islands. It adds many new buildings like the tourist mooring to allow tourists to land on your islands, hotels to house them, and restaurants, cafes and bars to keep them happy. These new semi-residents of course come with their own set of needs, requiring all sorts of products from the old and new world, including several totally new ones requiring new ingredients and buildings to produce. All of this also comes alongside a new storyline featuring culinary adventures and the Queen herself seeking to build the new Iron Tower monument. Finally, you also gain 22 new ornaments to decorate your islands to be more tourist friendly. Again, this one is going to go into only if you really want it, since it is really its own little sub-game with no interaction with anything else. If you're really into making attractive islands and want to be rewarded for that, then go right ahead, but for your average newer player, it's not super important. And finally we have the High Life. The High Life builds directly on top of the old world with a focus on the super late game. Like you will have pretty much finished off your old world islands before you come to the content this adds. It allows you to convert engineer and investor residences into skyscrapers that allow for an increased population in the same area, meaning a much higher density of residents that was previously impossible. To balance out this absurd amount of resources this population consumes, you also gain access to shopping arcades which require products of their own to function, but in return reduce the consumption of other goods to keep things under control. These goods are totally new with the DLC and require ingredients from the new and old world to be crafted, meaning those trade routes are only going to get more complicated. You can also build the mother of all skyscrapers in the form of the Skyline Tower, which can house a massive number of investors, as well as providing several buffs to your company. Finally, you also gain 10 new ornaments to decorate your islands in the theme of this lavish endgame style. I would say this is a fun one for most people, since everyone can and will make use of it at some point, but it's going to take you until the endgame to even see it. Like, you can play the entire game and then once your islands are capping out, pick up this DLC to keep them growing and give yourself more to do with all the new complex needs. Overall, the Season 3 pass is probably the weakest so far, since 2 out of the 3 bits of content are pretty niche and can be completely ignored with basically no consequences for you. This means I don't really have a choice other than to put it in only if you really want it to. If these bits of gameplay sound like a lot of fun, then go right ahead, but most players can skip this and still have a great time in game. And our final season is Season 4, and the only DLC to be released so far is the Seeds of Change. This is of course the most recent DLC to Anno, and is a focus on the new world and making it a little bit more space efficient. The main building added is the Hacienda, which acts as an agricultural hub and performs the same job as a warehouse and a market, but has a pretty large range. It has several modules you can build, such as residences for jornaleros and obreros, which have a higher total capacity but have more needs. These needs require unique goods that can only be made from the new farm and brewery buildings, such as hot sauce and atole. The farm buildings also allow you to build farms for resources regardless of the island's fertility, and bring grain and potato farming into the new world. The final buildings are the storeroom, which of course increases storage capacity, and the fertilizer works. This allows you to collect dung from animal farms in the building's radius and convert it into fertilizer. This can then be shipped to crop farms with fertilizer silos to double their efficiency, and can be theoretically used across regions if you can produce it fast enough. This content pack also of course comes with some new ornaments to decorate your haciendas and get them looking all pretty. I'm going to put this into fun for most people, since the hacienda does simplify new world building and makes it feel different to the old world, which makes it more fun if you ask me. Yes, a hacienda may not be the most efficient in practice when you do the full maths, but it looks good and it is fun to use, so I give it a pass, and it's my list. The other 2 pieces of DLC for Season 4 are Empire of the Skies and New World Rising. Of course, these haven't been released yet, but they do sound pretty exciting. So for the overall score for Season 4, it's still going to go into only if you really want it, since you should probably wait for the content to come out before grabbing the pass. With the trailers and details we know so far getting you excited and you have some cash to burn, then go right ahead so you can enjoy it as soon as all the content drops. Now we come to the cosmetic packs. I'm going to go through these quickly since they are all purely decorative. If you're only interested in gameplay rather than beauty building, then you can skip all of these, so like and a sub on your way out if you don't mind. But if you like spending hours making your islands look good, then there's lots to have fun with here. First up, we have the holiday pack. Obviously, this has a bunch of decorations based on the festive winter period. You have the carousel, a couple of Christmas trees, market stalls, and more. This one is going to go in must buy for 2 reasons. Reason 1 is that Christmas and the festive period only come once a year, so most of the time decorating like this is just going to be strange and out of season. Reason 2 is we kind of need something to go into this category, and this is probably the worst DLC we have, so it makes sense. Next up we have the Amusements pack, and this is actually probably my favourite of the cosmetic packs. You basically have everything you need to make your own little amusement park, complete with a roller coaster, Ferris wheel, and a bunch of small attractions and stalls. I like to build a little park in the nice outskirts of my cities to increase my attractiveness, and it just looks cool. If you're going to buy any cosmetic pack, I would recommend this one. It's just good, clean fun, and it's going to go on must buy since, like I said, it is my list. Plus, in the context of cosmetics, this one is of course my favourite. Next up we have City Lights. This one is a little bit more generic, with a couple of different shops and stalls you can place to liven up your streets. There's also a few park ornaments along with a couple of lighting pieces to brighten things up if you have the day and night cycle turned on. For me, there's nothing here that's super exciting, but most things can be used on almost any island if you want to give them a bit more life. I would say catch it on a sale if you can, but don't worry about it if not, since like I said, it's a little bit generic. Next up we have the Vehicleries Pack, and this one is for sure one of the weakest that you could pick up. While it says you gain 34 new skins, what it actually means is you gain 1 new flagship style and then 2 new colour schemes used across all ships, 4 new airship skins if you own the Passage DLC, and 7 train skins. Yes, I know you see your ships and trains quite a lot, but most of the time later in the game, you send them off to do work and you never see them again, so these skins rarely get seen. Combine that with the fact it's basically 2 recolors for the most part, and I'm going to have to put this one in the only if you really want it to. If you like staring at your vehicles and taking nice cinematic shots, then you'll enjoy this, but if not, you will hardly notice. Next up we have the Pedestrian Pack. This of course focuses on pedestrian areas for your residents to walk around to get from place to place, rather than spending all their leisure time in here. With this pack you can build canals and sewers to divide your city up a bit more and introduce water systems to the land aside from just the rivers. You can also build paths and bridges around these waterways, as well as archways to go over roads and railways for a little bit more realism. Finally, you have a few new functional buildings such as public toilets, a market hall, and a pavilion. This one is another one that's a little bit generic since the decorations here can be used on pretty much any island to add a little bit more depth. However, since the decorations here are pretty cool looking and the waterways are unique, I'm going to bump it up to fun for most people since I really think anyone can make their islands look cool with these. The Vibrant Cities pack is another one with a misleading description, as it states it adds 69 nice new models, which it technically might. In reality, however, you get 3 new skins for each of the resident tiers, and for the most part they are very similar as you go up tier to tier. You also get 3 skins for the market, and that's it. I have nothing against the reskins, and they do look pretty, but at the end of the day, it's the coat of paint on the same buildings you had before, so I'm going to have to stick it into only if you really want it. Just like the Vehicle Liveries pack, if you like taking cinematic shots of your island, then you'll like this for the variation. Overall, it's not a lot of value for your money, especially when compared to the other packs. The Seasonal Decorations pack is kind of similar to the Holiday pack, but nowhere near as specific to a certain time. There are a few more items for Christmas that are going to look a little bit out of place if used year round, but overall the pack is full of seasonal items for the marketplace. You have a bunch of stalls alongside floral arrangements to make paths and decorate your market. I'm still going to stick this one to only if you really want it, since most of the time a market like this is going to look kind of out of place out of the festive season, but if you're really into this sort of look, then you can have a lot of fun here. And our final and the most recent cosmetic pack is the Industrial Zone pack that came out just a few weeks ago at this point. It adds a bunch of items for decorating the industrial areas of your island with railway decorations such as stations, platforms, cranes and coal towers. Alongside this you also have decorations for general industry like water pipes, storage tanks, scaffolding and fences. You really seem to get a lot here, and if you're making the ugliest part of your islands look pretty, then you can do a great job with the tools given. I am however going to toss it in to catch it on a sale. The only thing holding it back from being fun for most people is the fact that the industrial area, as I said, is basically the ugliest area of your island, and most people might just want to keep it as small as possible and not draw attention to it. And there you have it, that is my tier list for every single Anno 1800 DLC. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you have any changes you'd make, leave a like if you want to see more Anno content, and subscribe to never miss a video. If you're feeling especially big penis, you can become a supporter either by joining the membership system here on YouTube or becoming a patron on the Patreon. Doing so gets you discounts on merch, early access to behind the scenes, and increased voting power for future content. Thanks to Henry Tucker for his support at the Officers tier. Also thanks to all supporters, and one final thank you for watching. For now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.